Hi there and welcome to Stamping in the Barnyard. Thank you so much for visiting my channel. My name is Bethany Barnard and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin Up, and I'm excited about sharing this project with you today. It's a kind of a cute way to give a small gift to coworkers or stocking stuffers or neighbors, a host of people, I believe. Anyway, it's got packets of mixed nuts, and that's just kind of really popular, at least in my family. I like to carry them in the car if I'm running errands or whatever. I'm not going to talk about all the products that I'm using to make this project in advance. I'll talk about them as I'm putting this together, but I did want to let you know that I have done all the measurements and put them in the description so you'll know everything I've used, as well as how to prep and score in advance so you can follow along and make this project. I would only ask that you might consider giving me a thumbs up, subscribing to my channel, and the very human touch that means a lot to me. It's really an encouragement for me to go ahead and make another video, is if you leave a comment. So I would ask that you consider doing that for me. It wouldn't take too long and I appreciate it so much. All right, so I'm going to take you through how to make this project. Keep in mind that all of the supplies and measurements are in the description box. So you will need 2 sheets of cardstock to make this double box hinge treat. So this measures 9 inches by 7 3/4 inches. And I'm going to show you how to score it. I'm only going to score 1 for you on the camera, and then you'll just know that you're going to do both sheets exactly the same way. But when you cut this down to 9 inches, keep your 2-inch panel because you're going to need that as well later on. Okay, so we're going to score with the 9 inches at the top. We're going to score at 1 inch, again at 4 inches, again at 5 inches, and then at 8 inches. And yes, I have already scored this. This is me running through this film for the umpteenth time. Okay, so then again, once you've turned it 90 degrees, you're going to score it at 1 inch, and then again at 6 inches and 7 inches. So notice that one side of this has 2 score lines, so 2 rows of panels, and this one only has 1. So as we continue, this would be considered the top of the box, and this would be the bottom of the box. The next thing I recommend that you do is use in my case, I use the everyday arches, but you could use any kind of window for this. But I'm going to show you how to measure them so that both sides of the boxes are equal. Now, I am using the 3.5 by 2 1/4 arch, but on the sample that I just showed you, it was 3 1/4 by 2, and that's just because I pulled out the wrong one. And as I said, I've already done some advanced work on the one we're going to put together, so you don't have to wait for that. So I just wanted to let you know that this one's, we'll see how it comes out. It's just a different size. So in order to make sure that the windows are at the same level, and also because you can't put a wide piece through the embossing machine, I'm going to show you how I do these windows. And you're just going to do 1 window on each panel. So if you do this one on the right panel, which is what I'm doing in between these 2 score marks, on the second panel, you will move this over to this side. Doesn't matter too much. You can always fold the box differently and it will work either way. But the reason why I recommend that it works regardless, there's so many mistakes you can make on this, but it will still come out okay. But this is just so that you get, you always get a cleaner edge when you cut on the paper than on the back side. But it's not something anybody who was receiving it would ever notice. Anyway, so my recommendation to you is on one side of the panel, on one sheet, and the other side on the other sheet. So I fold up this bottom. As I said, you're gonna need to do some folding just to make sure it goes through the emboss machine. I sit it up against that 1 inch. That way we're gonna know when you do it with the other one that they're gonna be at the same height. And then I center it between these two score marks, and I like to use the Post-it tear and tape. So I'm not going to show you this except for this top panel. You're going to need that folded down as well, and this at this width it can go through your embossing machine. So I would then put my plate on top and roll it through. And when you do that, you get this. Now, so I showed you I have one on each side of the panel. The next thing that you would do at this point is I'm going to go to the back side, and I'm going to put tear and tape around my window once I find the start here. And you're going to want to put this right close up to the window edge here. You do not have to cover the entire thing because you just need enough for it to stick. Because we are going to put a window sheet on. Again, the measurements are under the box, but my window sheet measures 4 inches by 2 3/4. And I'm realizing I brought this one up so high that it's going to have a little sticky on it that we won't need. But I have a solution for that as well. Okay, so once you've, on the wrong side, you've put this tear and tape around it, then here's my window sheet that I told you measures 4 by 2 3/4, and I am going to pull up that tear and tape and I'm going to put that on. So here we go. You don't want to pull up the tape, you only want to pull up the backing. I could be using my take your pick tool, but I think it's in my craft room and I do my videotaping at my dining room table, so I am using my imperfect fingernails here. There we go. All right, so place the window sheet over it, making sure that you cover. And so right here we have just that little bit of sticky. In fact, I don't think it's even going to interfere, but it can roll up, as you can see here. So that's going to be okay. So that's done on the inside, what will be the inside of the box. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is cutting. And so the piece that, if you have the arch, so you have 2 wider panels that are 3 inches wide. The arch is going to be the front of your box here. And so you're going to want the other wide panel to be the tab that tucks in. So we want to keep this tab. So what I'm going to do, since we're going to keep this tab, it's always best for me to be safe by the first thing I do being keeping rather than cutting, because once you cut, you can't uncut. You want to make these lines as straight as you can because every one of these panels are seen. They're on the outside of the box. Well, we will be gluing some together, but yeah, just be real careful. You want to go right on the score line to cut that. And then, as I said, we're keeping all of this panel. So we'll cut this up like this. Okay, and then you want to take off on this, for the rest of this, once you've saved the part that does not have the window, you want to just cut off this second panel. We're going to do some more cutting too, but you never want to cut more than you're sure of. At this point, because what we're going to do is to give it a nice edge here, we are going to fold this down, but you can see that you'd see that through the window. So we are going to go ahead and cut this other wide panel down even further. We're going to keep it, but we're going to cut it down wider. Cut it down wider. That doesn't make sense. Thinner is what I meant. It's only to give you a nice edge, so you only have to keep about a 1/2 inch or 3/8 of an inch. And then you want to check it and make sure and see that it doesn't show through. So we're going to glue that down now. And remember, we're going to be doing the same thing to both boxes. It also means that it really doesn't matter that I have a little bit of glue there either, now that I think about it. And that just gives a nicer edge than a raw edge like this. That's why I do that. If you accidentally cut it off, that's not a big deal either. Okay, so then these will be our 2 tabs at the top. And we definitely need them slightly, now that's really important, slightly mitered. Because if you over miter it, then the tab won't stay in. I've given a 3/4 inch tab here because I know that the longer the tab, the better it's gonna, but you know what, it just occurred to me, especially because I used a wider window on this box than I did the other one. This might be too big, because when I stick this down in there, this is just occurring to me as I put this together, we're gonna have to have this be, so that's why the other, I think the other measurement, if you have the everyday arches, I would recommend the 3 1/4 by 2. That way it doesn't show in the window. This is a bigger one. So what I'm gonna do, I still want, yeah, there isn't a best solution for this. You definitely want to use that other die. Glad I figured that out. I'm gonna have to cut off 1/2 inch of this. And I probably wasn't as careful about that mitering as I should have been. But it's still, I know I'm gonna still be okay with this. And then we'll put this tab down in here and it shouldn't show. Okay, that looks good. And those are things that you can fix at the time that you're putting it together, so that's not a big deal. So this is what you want it to look like, and you're gonna want both of them to look like that. And then you're gonna cut up at the bottom here. I think we can let go of one, can we? Yeah. So I'm gonna cut this one off. So on the far corner away from the window, you can cut this square off. Now here I am actually breaking my own rule. In my mind I can, and I hope that I'm right. Because once you cut, if you don't know what you're doing, you could make a mistake. So you'll find out. At the same time, I'll find out. Okay, and we'll cut this one up. And then we'll cut this one up. Most important thing here, you can miter these, and you don't even have to worry too much about how shallow or how wide, because you won't see these at all. But on these two, on the wider panels, you want them as straight as possible, because at least one of them will be seen on the outside. Okay. Well, this could go a little straighter, even though I know nobody's going to take their box apart to see how I did on that. Okay, I'll get rid of those. Now I have to do the same thing to my other panel, which I'm guessing if you are following along, so do you. So now you've got another chance to see the same thing. Again, we're going to keep the long tab. I can go ahead and just cut all, well, I won't do that. Okay, so without the archway, this is the one that you're keeping the double tab. So you can go ahead and cut all of this off. There, and then at this point you can cut this top bit off. I just told you not to do that, and then I did that. Well, that's not good. Okay, we're gonna do some, don't do that. The whole point of that was so that you would keep that one. All right, let's see if I can get this right now. I'm gonna cut this off. I'm gonna tape that together, guys. That's what I'm gonna have to do. Do not cut that. I hope I caught you in time. I'm gonna go get some Scotch tape, so I'm gonna jump up and grab that. Hope it's not too far away. I've been wrapping presents in my bedroom, so I'm hoping that I still have some out here. I'll be right back. Okay, it's not right here, so I am going to fix that at the very end so that you can keep going. That is why I say isolate the tab that you have to keep first. This whole thing's going to come off because I cut it all the way to the end. So when I cut this tab, the whole top's gonna come off. Remember, you should still have that little tab here. These scissors, I'm gonna switch scissors because those are a bit dull. Wish I could blame that on my mistake, but obviously I can't. I don't even know why I'm trimming this because I'm gonna have to fix this whole thing. Okay, so yours should be longer. I sure hope that you haven't made this mistake, but you might as well see how you correct a mistake too, right? Why is it that when you're making a video, you make a mistake? Okay, and then down here, again, we can cut this one off completely. Hope I'm right about that. But I think I am. Not to have a repeat of what I did up top there. I'm driving up to Atlanta today to fly out, hopefully to Anchorage tomorrow morning, Anchorage, Alaska. I'm trying to get so much done. I take care of my 92-year-old mother, and I've got some help coming in, and I just have so much I want to get done, but I wanted to get this video made. Okay, so here I'm going to fold this down, and we're going to remember, in my case especially, you don't have to do this if you use that smaller arch frame. But I'm going to fold this down, and it needed to not show through that window. It's one of the hardships of making videos is if you make a mistake on the video and you start over, you know, how much cardstock do you want to go through? In my case, since I'm so prone to mistakes, at least when I'm doing a video, I think I'm prone to mistakes. Okay, so hopefully we're at least this far. I am going to fix this as we go along, and if you see how this is made, it's exactly the same for both of them. So what you want to do is you're going to put you want to put this, I think I want to put this side down. And I'm going to put glue here, and then I'm just going to fold this over. You want it to be able to fold flat, because that means that all of your dimensions are going to be perpendicular. Somebody's going to say, no, it doesn't, because you could have it go, I don't know. But anyway, that's what I do. It should be, because that's how I scored it. Okay. And then I always like to then just press it in the opposite direction. There we go. And now we can do the bottom. And what I do is, since this is the back, this will be the last flap I fold, because that makes this the front. So this will be the last flap I fold over. So the first one will be the wide one across from it. And I'm just going to trim this a little bit because I can see where the score line is. In my desire not to over trim, I under trimmed. Okay, so we're going to put this one down. And then we're going to put these two side flaps down. And this is where you can see how it didn't matter about the mitering. Of course, that's easier to... I really had some pretty ratty scissors I was using before. It's like a bad trimmer. All right, so we're going to put this down. And then I'm going to do the same with the other side. I don't mind holding it while I do this, because in a minute I'll stick my bone folder down there. So I can turn this up. Make sure it's on the camera, and then just run the bone folder down there to know that that's stuck. And then now I'm going to just fold this flap back. Okay, and then this is when you want to check and see if the flap goes in okay, and you really don't want to trim this. I know it looks nice to have rounded edges or whatever, but the less you trim that, the more likely it's going to stay in place once you close it. So what I need to do here is just, and I just recommend that you do this a little bit at the time, because if you over miter, then the flap will be more likely to come up. If you've used that smaller arch, you'll be better off, just because you can use that 3/4 inch tab that I gave you at the top, and the longer that tab is, the more likely it is to not come undone. I don't know if that's making any sense, but I know what I mean. Clean up my space a little bit. Okay, so now, and then here I can see I'm just a little bit over that score here too. So I'm just gonna make it exactly on that score line. I can take that all the way up. And then the other side looks good. There you go. And that's doing a good job of staying shut, so that's good news. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put one of the packets of nuts in here. Fold this back. And that also helps to actually keep it shut, to be honest with you. So we're gonna go ahead, and there's one box, and you're gonna do exactly the same thing with the other box. Now in my case, I'm gonna have to do a repair job on here. And I think the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to do 3 by 2 inches. No, I'm going to do 2.5 by 3 inches. I don't want to have you guys waiting while I do that, though. Let me just look real quick. Someone else might need to see how you fix this. So just, if you didn't make a mistake, just fast forward a little bit. But here's how I'm going to fix this. I measured 3 inches by 2.5. And so if I put the 2.5 side up here and score a 1/2 inch and 1 inch, so 1 inch and 2 inches on my 2.5 inch side, then I'm going to glue this down. Oh, well, it's going to be thicker, but that could be good. It might hold the tab in better because it's going to move it forward a bit. Let's see if my last minute correction here works, but I think it will. All right, there we go. Let's just hope that this looks okay when it's done. And then I'm going to take this 1/2 inch side here, add the glue, and now bring it up to the top here like this. You know, I did those 2 inches, even though we already know I gotta cut it down so it doesn't get shown through the window. Oh dear. Oh dear. Best laid plans. Okay, so I'm gonna cut this down now. So really, if you make this mistake, you really only need 2 inches and then cut it 1/2 inch and 1.5 inches. And now here's our tab. Let's see if this works. So it was around a quick fix if it worked. All right, so now I'm going to fold this side down. And I have a reason for, and it's because these 2 sides are actually going to end up up next to each other. So that's why I wanted the back going in there. But it's not something that matters a lot. I don't know. I know, again, I know what I mean and what I'm trying to say, but all right. Hopefully, this is why videos are helpful, to see what somebody's doing. Now you've seen one properly made and you've seen one that I had to repair. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take the back of the box, so this is the back, and we folded up this longer tab here to go here. And now we're going to glue these 2 side tabs into place. You never know how much you're doing off camera. And once it's stuck a little bit, I'm going to pull this up and put my bone folder in again. Can you see that? There we go. And then I'm going to fold this one over and that will give you a nice finish at the front. So all is not lost on this box, thankfully. Where did I put the lid? It's important to me that this lid go on right away because that glue will dry up quickly if you're not careful. And now I'm going to put my other treat box inside. And then it looks like this one does need to be a little bit more mitered. Because you have to be able to slip this tab in front of it. And that's why. And it needs to go straight down. And I know it looks like a tight fit, but understand that that's what you're trying to go for, is a tight fit so it won't just pop up and open. Now, since I cut this separate, it looks like maybe it is just that tiny hair longer than 3 inches. So I am going to trim this very carefully and not too much at all. When we say a hair, I really mean a hair. There we go. Let's see how we do there. Move my nuts back. I might have to miter it some more, but it really is, I do recommend that you be careful because the biggest mistake is making them too, yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit more here. This is the back and forth that you need to get that measured just right for this to fold in. Now, once you open and close it a few times, it's so much easier. So there you go. That's gonna work. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we are going to put this, okay, this is how you want them to open. So with them shut, you're gonna then turn it so that this is the back. And then you're gonna take, remember I told you to keep a 2-inch panel from when you cut off the 9 inches, you get 2 inches left on a 11-inch side. You only need one of them from one sheet, but nonetheless, you're gonna need 2 inches by 4 7/8. And then you just score at 1 inch. And then I always like to crease it once. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna put this on here. And that's what makes the hinge so that the box opens and closes. So I like to put the glue right on these boxes. So I'll do one at a time. You just wanna keep them to where it's where you want them to open. And then you can fill that in. And then here. And then I like to just put it on one side at a time. Make sure that the boxes are up against each other. It's better to make this piece slightly smaller rather than have something overhang, but this one looks like it's good. Now the 2 back panels should be 1 inch each. So if you do 2 inches, you should be fine. Now again, these, once you put the papers and decorate this up, then it's even a bigger win, if that makes sense, because that just dresses it up and you don't see any of the mistakes that someone might have made, someone like me. Okay, so this is the 6x6 DSP that was called Tags and More. That was in our catalog. I know it's no longer available, so this, you can use any kind of, I would just choose a card base that goes with the colors that you have and whatever DSP you have. Okay, this is my front, so I'm gonna go ahead and decorate the back. They look really similar, but this is definitely the back. And I'll explain the front and why we have to do the front in a certain way if you use this DSP. And you certainly don't have to. If I didn't have it, I wouldn't, but I would still make this box. In fact, I am running out of this paper myself, so I will be making more boxes, but I will be using different DSP. Maybe I'll put them up on my Facebook page, which is also called Stamping in the Barnyard. Okay, so that's the back side, and now we're going to do the top with these two pieces, which are 2 7/8 by 7/8. I found that this particular page was actually one of the 6x6 paper, was actually one of the harder ones to incorporate in projects, but it works out well with the squirrels underneath the little arch there. I also feel like that keeps the theme of the arch on the inside, even though I don't think you have to have the everyday arches dies. You can do any kind of window. You don't even have to do a window, but it seems like it makes more sense if you do a window. Although I have another project where I don't do a window. Maybe I'll show that at the end. I'm hoping to make a video of that too, but the way this one's gone today, I'm like, not sure I can find it in me to do the other video. I actually have a couple more that I was hoping to do. I do like all this ivy, you know, it just kind of gives that impression of outdoors, which is where hopefully those squirrels are running around, not indoors. So having a greenery scene did make sense to me. I think the other box that I want to use actually though is the snowflake one, because I think that'll make sense too for the squirrels to be out with the snowflakes, even though I live in Florida. So I live in Florida, but last year we actually had snow. I've lived here for over 30 years and we've never had snow, maybe a flurry. I live up in North Florida, but still, you just, you know, snow is not something we see. We had the snow coming down so hard and it just blanketed our front lawn, and it was there for, actually the snow was on the ground for a few days. The remnants of it lasted a week for sure, but it was just beautiful for a few days. And then my youngest grandchildren are so excited because I'm talking about the ones that are like 3 and 4. They're so excited because Christmas is coming and it's gonna snow again. And we're like, because they remember last year's snow, but they don't really remember Christmas before last year. So they think, you know, with movies and everything else, that it's gonna snow because we're near Christmas time. Let's straighten this out a little bit. You can see I'm just putting these panels on. Again, the measurements are all there. These are the same measurements as the top, 2 7/8 by 7/8. And that's just for if you want a bigger edge, edge is that what we call it, mat, you could do it 2 3/4 by 3/4. But I preferred the smaller mat, you know, just a little bit of that red peeping out. Okay. So now we have the box mostly covered. We got to do the front, we got to do the inside, and that requires other stamp sets and paper. So this is the same DSP, but on the front it has an archway, and to get the archway in the placement that I want, because you have to have enough room if you're going to use this DSP to be able to put the stump and the animal and what you're stamping all the way up. What I did was I cut off, you know, I should remember this, but I don't really. Okay, so this measures like 4 7/8. And I know that what I did was I just cut this to the very tippy top of this arch. So I wasn't cutting through it, but as close to it as I could. And then I measured the rest of it to be 4 7/8. And then I knew that it would be about enough. Now I did stamp and color these in advance, so that you did not have to wait for me to do it. The squirrels are really pretty easy to line up. You just want to make sure the ears, the tail, and the feet are, I always stamp the outline first, and you want to make sure that the ears, the tail, and the feet are all lined up, ready to be filled in, and you are likely to hit that right on the spot. Now, I made a little present for the inside and a little present for the outside, and the way I have our squirrel holding it is I just put a tiny dot. You could use a glue dot if you want, but I just use this favorite glue of mine, the liquid Tombow, and then I just help him pick that up. I think I might do that. We're going to put him on with dimensionals though, so we're going to put him aside. And then I have already colored my stump, and I did use blends on these. You don't have to color the squirrels, because I did the outline in the espresso and I filled them in with pecan pie inks. But the acorns and the stump need to be colored in if you want them colored in. So I just used my blends, and again, I stamped it in the espresso, and I colored it in with pecan pie, but you can use any of your browns you have. And I also used some of the retired wheat, wild wheat, just to get kind of a little bit of a contrast there. You're going to want to put that stump down and centered, but really close to the bottom. The other thing I recommend before we do more of this is that, I should have another present here too. I hope I do. Yeah, there it is. Okay. We have to do the Go Nuts, which is from this Fluffy Squirrel stamp set. Love this stamp set. Love Go Nuts. It's your birthday. Great for birthday cards. May you gather happiness. I use this as we were getting nearer Thanksgiving, because I think that's perfect, and lots of acorns gathered together. Easy to do because of the punch. Can't wait to see you again. I have, what do I have? I have right now, I have 7 grandchildren that live, as I said, some are in Alaska, some are in Chicago, and here I am in Florida. So I like to send them regular cards. And so can't wait to see you again is perfect for my grandkids. And he doesn't, when I first saw this stamp set, the images, they kind of looked odd. But when you stamp them together, you can just see how cute they come up. So don't be put off by the fact that they look a little odd before they're filled in. You can use, I use blends to do my acorns, and again I did the wild wheat that's retired, but you could use crumb cake, and then I use pecan pie for the tops of them, and then I use granny apple green and cherry cobbler to do my presents. But you could just as easily use the watercolor pencils. I love the watercolor pencils. So I just wanted to let you know that. But here's the tricky part. We want to, now I don't have a problem cutting my photopolymer stamps apart. So if you don't have a problem, because it ends up being like a puzzle, it's easy to use them together again, even if you've cut them apart. But I've decided not to cut this one apart just because I don't know if the day will come when I hate to think of selling it down the road, but you know, sometimes a girl has to do what a girl has to do. So we are going to just ink up the Go Nuts. And I think I managed to do that. So once you've done that, you want to stamp that as high up in these arch of greenery as you can. There we go. Because you don't have a lot of room. I might have done that tiny bit lower, but I'm happy with it, and it will definitely work. And I did that in real red because that's the base color of my cardstock. And it's a nice contrast with those berries that are coming out. So now I can continue, and I'm going to put my squirrel up on here with dimensionals. And I do use a lot of dimensionals because I don't want anybody to flatten my little squirrel. I don't know that that would happen, but I just use a lot of dimensionals. All right, you probably could get away with just 3 if you're one who likes to conserve them. I remember when I first started Stampin' Up 22 years ago, I was very stingy with my dimensionals, and I'm really glad I'm over that. Okay, so here we go. And then finally, we're just gonna add, I just add, you know, the rule of odd numbers, often 3. Well, I abide by that most of the time. So I did want to show you that if you do get this set, I have it here somewhere. If you stamp a bunch of acorns in this direction, because I need 6 for this project, then it's very easy to just take this in, punch, punch, punch. So that's the way you would do a lot of those, and then just color them in. So I'm going to put 2 down flat, and then I'm going to put 1 up on dimensionals. So let's see, we'll just do this one here. And let's see. It's always weird when you just have 2, because look, they like, but when I put this 3rd one in, I think it's gonna not look so strange, not so even. So the dimensional. You know, I'm still feeling so bad about messing up on that box, and it all worked out okay in the end, but it did mean that the video was longer and I had to step away for a bit. Frustrating. Okay, so I'm going to put this here, and because that's raised up, I really like the look of that. And now before I put Christmas Time Is Here on here, I am going to go ahead and put this on my box because I think it's easier that way. And I am realizing, or did I? I'm not sure I cut. I feel like I did though, because I remember measuring it out. It's like 2.5 by 1/2 inch if you're using this particular stamp set. And I'll show you what I mean in a second here. Let me get this up on the box. I hope my mistakes have at least helped you to feel like if I can do this, anybody can do it. Yep, okay. Okay, so we're getting there. I just need to put Christmas time is here on the outside, and then we'll have the inside to do. And I am looking for that piece, and I don't see it right here, even though I really thought I had cut that in advance. All right, it's gonna take me 2 seconds. 2.5 inches by 1/2 inch. If I had my other cutter here, that would work better, but okay, here we go. Sorry about that. And then I'm gonna take, now this Christmas time is here is from this A Little Cheer bundle, which also has these 3 coordinating punches to punch out the stocking, the star, and the tree. I love it for very quick tags and for little decorations like this in here, and also Go Nuts Christmas Time is Here made sense to me. So I am going to do that in garden green. And my garden green pad got broken, so I'm going to be kind of careful with it. And I'll probably close it up after the video so that you don't have to see me make a mistake with that. So here it is, 2.5 inches by, I got green on it. See, that's part of what a broken ink pad will do. Christmas time is here. And then I do like to flag this. And to me, the easiest way to cut a flag is to cut halfway up the side, and then from the points meet up. I don't remember, I do have that new punch that does 3 different styles of banners. I don't know if I've checked that out to see if it would do this. It might. But it's new, so I didn't think of it. Gotta remember all these new things I have. All right, there we go. And then I'm gonna put this up with dimensionals as well. When I made these with customers the other day, I had one say, I didn't have as much trouble when I did this with my customers the other day, thankfully. But I did have one of my customers say, oh, I love this box. Do you remember those lifesavers that you'd get, like all those different lifesavers in a pack like that? Well, that's what she wants to do, is put lifesavers in them. Of course, that doesn't make sense to say Go Nuts, but I guess it still could. Anyway, there we go. That's for the outside. And then the inside, this will go real quick since I've got everything colored. But if you just put some glue down here for your squirrel. I don't like to put glue on any of the acetate or window sheets, because that can really make a mess. And then I'm going to just do a dab of glue here between his hands so he can hold a present. And I did this one green with a red bow because there's so much red on the inside here. Kind of picks up some contrast. And then I'm going to do my Now I did do these all flat, 3 more acorns, but because you want the bucks to shut flush, I didn't put any up on dimensionals on the inside. I don't know what I'm doing here. Looks good. These are spare for another project. I do intend to make another one of these boxes, so that'll work. And then here he is. So there you have it. Mistakes and all, it still works. Thank you. If you've made it all the way through this, I'm just so proud of you. And I just appreciate, again, if you would give me a vote of confidence, especially after the mistakes I've made. Thank you for watching. Bye.